And now, ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Kocher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if you want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and him, Pete Williams.
Hey buddy, how's things?
Hey, fantastic mate, fantastic. Do you want to get the weather discussion out of the way before we start?
Well, it's summer here and it's been a nice couple of days, and I'm actually working from the office today, not the home office, so in St Kilda Beach, and it looks quite nice outside.
So you're finally definitely and fully unpacked from that house move then, are you?
The garage has still got some boxes.
Oh.
But we won't mention that, and lucky that Fleur doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah, did you bury them? Did you hide them?
I think the theory isn't the theory that if you don't open the box for 6 months, then you throw it out?
It is indeed, and I may just check up on you on that with that accountability stuff.
Yeah, make a calendar diary note.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, folks. Well, we're kind of revving up for the new year. We're getting close to the end of the year, and one of the things that Pete and I have talked about for a while is to just introduce some more thematic elements to the podcast. You like that word? Thematic.
Oh, there we go.
Thematic. Yeah. And last week we talked to you about the 7 levers of business, and it was a recap for our our regular listeners, not old listeners. A recap for our regular listeners and an introduction to some of the new listeners that we got through our new partnership with Ant Hill Online. Thank you, James. So what we'd like to do is to continue in that vein, because one of the things that Pete and I get asked quite a lot is, so my business is X type of business. Insert your business here. It might be a bricks and mortar retail store. It might be a consultant. You might be even. We've even had people who an artist. People from all walks of life that we meet at various events or through our coaching or whatever, and everybody always wants to know how we would help improve their business. What marketing and strategy ideas we would put to them to help improve their business, because everybody's business is slightly different, and different types of business need a different approach. So what we thought we would do is start a bit of a series, semi-regular, not just a run, but just dotted through the regular podcasting. What we want to do is introduce this series, and we're going to call it the If I Was series. So, for example, if I was the owner of a retail store, or if I was an artist, or if I was a consultant, and just to keep things really easy to follow along with and easy to implement, what we want to do is to carry on the idea of the 7 levers. It's a core part of what Pete and I talk about. It's been something that we've put across to our audience for quite some time now. Because we really believe in it, and hopefully if you've listened to last week's show, you'll understand why. And if you haven't, by the way, do pop back and have a listen to that show, because it was a great example. Last week we kind of did a version of an If I Was, because we used an internet marketing business as a business to demonstrate the framework. So what we want to do in our If I Was this week is use the framework, the 7 levers of business, to walk through and give somebody an idea of how we would market that business. So this week I think we should, Pete, we went all the way over to the intangible world of the internet business. So let's this week go back down to grassroots. Let's talk about a retail bricks and mortar store, because the reason I picked this, by the way, is it's a little bit of a cheat, because Pete, I know you have a bit of experience with retail stores, don't you?
Yeah, look, that was sort of, I guess, my first job during university. I worked at Athlete's Foot for a number of years, between the classroom and the bar, and then had the opportunity to go and work overseas. So I worked with Athlete's Foot in America for a while as well, and then back here in Australia again. That last, I guess, part of time working for Athlete's Foot in Australia was just sort of meant to sort of kill time until I got back to the US for the girl I was dating at the moment. But the whole MCG venture started at an Athlete's Foot store, funnily enough. I've told that story. I think I've told the story on the show before in a previous episode. So if you want to, I guess, hear how I sold the MCG, Australia's version of Yankee Stadium for under $500, go back to the archives and find that episode. PreneurMedia.tv, or obviously iTunes, where you can find those. So I had that experience, as an employee and I guess you'd quote unquote, store manager to a certain extent. And then obviously, just recently now being back involved in that sort of retail space with the Outdoor Gear Store, which is a new business in the portfolio of stuff that we work on and work with and involved with and own and all that sort of jazz. So it's coming full circle, I guess, a little bit, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, to have started out as a guy on the ground on the shop front, and to go all the way through that process, and you're now the owner of the business. I think you have quite a good perspective on this, which is why I think it's a great place to start. So let's recap first of all the 7 levers. The 7 levers of business, the 7 areas of your business that you should focus on, the areas of profit in your business. Pete, do you want to run through those first, and then we'll go into, if you were a retail store owner, which you now are, what kind of things you could do?
So basically, to sort of sum this up really quickly, because hopefully people listen to previous episodes and understand that this is a big framework of everything we do, and we will try and not delve deep into the overall generics of the 7 levers in every one of these if I was a series episodes. But fundamentally, the whole idea of the 7 levers gives you a framework to focus on. So when you sit down to work on your business every week, and everyone should have that on the business time and not in the business time, you focus on one of these 7 things. And if you increase each area of the 7 levers by just 10%, mathematically proven, unquestionably scientifically justified, whatever the term should be, it'll actually give you a double or a 2 times increase in the profit of your business, which is huge. So let's just run through each of these things and sort of give people an idea that if I was a retail store, or fundamentally the things we're going to be implementing over the next 7 weeks or so and more, obviously inside the Outdoor Gear Store. People can see what I'm going to do, and they can apply this too if they're a retail store. But the whole idea here is even if you're not a retail store owner, don't switch off and go, this isn't me, this isn't my business, because the same principles apply no matter what you're doing, and you'll hone your skills and get your analytical thinking skills and things like that strengthened by listening to the shows like this where it's not in your industry, and just figuring out and asking the question, how can I apply this to my world, to my business, to my projects? Because the framework's the same, the strategy is the same, just the nuances of the tactic might be a little bit different. So just make sure you keep an open mind, like everything. If you're a PreneurCast listener and a Preneur community member, you obviously are that way inclined anyway. So that's just a sort of a subtle reinforcement.
Cool.
So
before you go in any more detail, can we just list the 7 levers, and then we'll come back and say what you would do with each one?
Sure. So there's traffic, there's opt-ins, there's conversions, there's the average dollar value of the items you sell, there's the number of items you sell per transaction, there's the number of transactions that customer does with you over a given period of time, which we're talking through a month or a year, whatever it might be. And then finally, the 7th lever that actually is a driver of your profit is profit margin, obviously. So basically, these are the 7 things that all equate to profit. You can't directly affect the profit of your business. All you can affect are the 7 inputs that actually affect that. So you need to focus on the things that can actually change and increase and adjust your profit, which are those 7 things I just mentioned.
Cool. Right, so let's dive in, and what if you were a retail store owner, what would you do?
Sure. Well, in terms of traffic, obviously this is the first driver, or the first lever that actually affects, as we spoke about. So traffic in the retail aspect and that sort of context is foot traffic. It's the people who walk into your store. Now, obviously, in terms of the outdoor gear store, we have a very strong online play. Obviously, people know that's my background. That's what we have. So, people can check that out at outdoorgearstore.com.au. So that's sort of the online retail site we've just recently relaunched and are working on and tweaking and things like that. And we've also got a daily deal site, like a Groupon style site just in the outdoor space, which is outdoordeals.com.au. So they're sort of the online plays. And what I'm talking about is not those two plays, because they're online e-commerce plays. And we might do another episode in the future about what I would do and what are the 7 levers of that e-commerce play, because they're completely different, obviously. So in the context of a retail store, I'm talking about the bricks and mortar side of things, which we have. So, for that, for example, an A-frame is something that I would suggest and test as an increase in traffic. Now, it's very, very bland. It's very, very boring. It's nothing too cool or sexy. But at the end of the day, it's a driver of traffic into a retail store. Recently we had a 7 Levers mastermind group where we actually had a range of 5 or 6, I think, business owners from across Australia work with us over a few months to actually work on these 7 levers in their business. And we, really worked with them one-on-one and supported them and grew them and helped them go. And one of those mastermind members, and we should do another mastermind group in early 2013, Dom, so we'll keep that sort of in our sleeve or up our sleeve, to sort of do something
because we both really enjoyed that, and some people got some fantastic results. We get great feedback from doing it, and I guess that's where you're going with this.
Yeah, exactly, because one of them was a retail children's clothing store, and on our advice and support, she put an A-frame out the side her store, which was simply just advertising the store and what they did and the benefits of buying the clothes from this store. And it was something like a 240% increase in foot traffic that week or something. Was that, his number's roughly right? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was significant.
It was some crazy increase. And this is the thing, and as you said, some things are actually like really, really simple. The simplest things very often can make a huge difference. And signage is one of those things. For any retail store, it's vital that your signage is good. But just sticking that A-frame out in front of the store so that people walking along so they're sideways onto your store, they can see that there's a store there and what it is. So if you think about it, if you've walked through any kind of a shopping mall or shopping street, if you see an A-frame, you do see it. It's obvious. It's far more obvious. And we had that particular person from our mastermind. They had some fantastic returns on that.
Well, let me give you. I'm going to give you a glaring omission of guilt here as well. Is that I was down in the outdoor store last week, so I'm spending a bit of time. Obviously, now we're involved in that quite regularly. I'm in the store doing a lot of stuff from marketing and looking at the books and all the usual stuff you do when you buy part of a business. And the phone rang. I didn't answer it. The team did, and there was a gentleman on the phone, literally going, "Where are you? I can't find you," because this, absolutely. And I put my hand up and say, we're not perfect at everything, and the store is relatively new, and it hasn't been sign written yet, and that's something else I'd suggest you do, obviously, and that's on our to-do list, of course. But the team, for whatever reason, hadn't put the A-frame out the front, and this guy had gone to the website, found the store, put the actual address in his iPhone, and still couldn't find us. Now, obviously, I stayed calm and breathed and all that sort of stuff. And, that's a glaring omission. Like, even people have your address sometimes can't find you. Look in the window. It's clearly an outdoor retail store. There's like climbing gear and backpacks and stuff in the window. So, the A-frame is now absolutely out the front every single day. And, that's that type of example that, some things you may have the A-frame like we did, but the team weren't putting it out, and that's obviously now a mandated thing that, hey, if it's there, it goes out. It's, no matter what. So even if you have sign writing, it can actually help, like in the instance of the clothing store we just gave an example. But, that's the sort of thing that it does increase foot traffic, and it actually even just helps people who are looking for you already find you.
Absolutely, and this is I think a little bit of a focus that we have. Is that it's not about the elaborate plays. It's not about the complex things. It's not about the latest, shiniest tactics. Very often, it's just the tried and trusted methods that have been around for a very long time that you just might not be doing, that are going to make that 10% difference. Because just the cumulative 10% across these 7 levers will, as we've said, mathematically double your profits.
And that's the thing, it's only 10%. It's nothing drastic. It's not trying to triple anything or quadruple anything. It's just like a small 10% increase, which is so easily achievable, which is the really cool thing about this. So, the question, I guess, the takeaway for anybody, whether you're a retail store or not, from this example, is to actually go, what are the things that are very, very obvious that you're not doing? Or the things that you decided to do 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years ago, that in fact, because of laziness or misdirected focus, you're no longer doing, such as an A-frame. The A-frame was built. It was already there. It was inside the front door of the store. It just wasn't getting put out. So what things in your life, in your business, in your processes, are you actually getting a bit lax with that you need to start revamping back up?
Good one. Okay, so I'm because it's retail and I don't know a lot about retail. I'm really intrigued to know what you're going to say about improving opt-ins. Because one of the things with the 7 levers is first of all is understanding what each one of the 7 levers means in your business, and then how are you going to improve it. So what is it with opt-ins and retail?
Sure. Well, opt-ins in my breakdown from a 7 levers perspective in the retail space is people who actually either engage in a conversation, but more so actually try on and get involved in the buying process. Now, obviously, online, it's people who opt into your newsletter and things like that. But in a retail store, you don't have that ability. So, coming from the footwear background, one of the big rules of Athlete's Foot, and the beautiful thing with a franchise is it's very structured and formalized their training and their support. And they are one of the best at it. There's no question about that. And they have the greet and seat rules, which is all about how you greet somebody and how you get them seated to try on a pair of shoes. So once you get them seated, they're in that, somewhat forward-moving process of purchasing, not just looking passively at the wall of shoes or the climbing gear or the harnesses or whatever it might be. They're actually interacting with the product. So that's the whole idea in a retail store, is get them to opt in and actually get involved actively in the process. So, in this example, what you're doing is you're trying to get the person to sit down and try on a pair of shoes. So how do you do that and actually interact and engage with the person to get them to take that step without sort of, sounding idiotic or frustrating and things like that? And, if you look at most retail stores, and the experience you'll probably had as a customer is you go into a store and what's the first question you get asked? You get asked, how can I help you? That's the tried and true basic question that every retail assistant asks every customer or prospect that walks in the door. And the problem with that is everyone now has a automatic reaction. The automatic reaction is, I'm just looking. I'm fine, don't talk to me. Because I don't want to be hassled by a salesperson. So that is not breaking that pattern. You need a pattern interrupt. You need a better question to ask. And the better question to ask, in a lot of cases, is, have you been here before? Hi, have you been into our store before? That question is a huge pattern interrupt. They can't turn around and go, no, I'm just looking. They're going to have to say, they can't just turn around and say, oh, I'm just looking, because that's not the question you asked. They have to give you a yes or a no. And if they give you a yes, you say, oh, fantastic. What do? Do you hike? Do you climb? Do you kayak? What is it that you actually do? And you can engage in a conversation with them because they've been in there before. They know your process and know what you do. And obviously, you now have had them verbalize they've got a relationship with you. So they're going to subconsciously want to talk because they've been there before. They're coming back again. That proves something. That subconsciously says a lot. If they say no, well, it's a huge opening for you to actually explain how you operate. Oh, fantastic. Well, obviously, as you know, we do a whole bunch of different stuff. We do things a little bit different to a normal retail store. So tell me, what do you actually do? Do you kayak? Do you climb? Do you hike? Do you run? Do you blah, 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 blah? So that question of, have you been in here before is a much better conversation starter than the typical, how can I help you, with the automatic response of, oh, I'm just looking, thanks. And
yeah,
also, I was just going to say quickly, and it's not a sales question. It's not a direct, how can I help you because you're here to get help and spend money. It's like, have you been in here before? It's a conversation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of retail store owners can appreciate that. Anybody that's in the moving of goods and that has does have floor staff or is involved in interacting with clients themselves directly. And I imagine that's really kind of a difficult one to overcome if you've not had any training. As you say, Athlete's Foot is a huge franchise and they've put a lot of money into the training, and it's almost like a scientific process that they go through, which a lot of franchises are. It is actually a huge and fascinating subject. I love looking into franchises for that, to learn about their processes for that point of view. But back at the simple end of things, a lot of people, their reflex is to say, "Can I help you?" And a lot of customers' reflexes is to say, "No, I'm just looking." So yeah, breaking through that, kind of jarring these people awake with something that's not "Can I help you?" not a yes or no question, and that is more open, that is more friendly, less salesy, is a great thing.
Another really quick example comes from Fleur and her work in the retail cosmetic space. Being a sales manager for Benefit Cosmetics and things like that. They have the magic formula, which is their sort of process. And this is, I think, an underlying key. All these great businesses, they have a formula that they teach their staff. There's the greet and seat rules at Athlete's Foot. There's the magic formula at Benefit Cosmetics. All these franchises have a formula for taking that foot traffic, making opt-ins and making conversions. So I think anybody in a retail space needs to put that in place for their staff. But their idea is to actually get people down and give them a free makeover. I don't think every female in the world is understanding how the cosmetics floor at major department stores work. That's how they work. The whole opt-in is to get them to sit down and try on the makeup. So while they're trying on the makeup, they can move the person to the next step, which is conversion. Once the person's sitting down trying on shoes, you now have them in that conversion process. Cool.
So what are your tips for conversion in a retail space?
Look, I think it's fundamentally, sales training. And there's a whole different things. We can do a whole series of shows. There's a number of shows. Advanced Selling Podcast is a great one as well, which is, I know, listens to our show and members of our community as well, which is really cool. And those sort of, shows and things can teach you how to teach your team to sell. So I think it's just sales conversion in general, about asking the right questions, future pacing the sale, things like, have you got any big events coming up? If you're in the makeup space, and go, oh, this would look brilliant with that dress, or get them talking about things that are coming up where they need makeup, and you can sort of then help, future pace the idea of wearing this brand at that function, get them to picture that. Maybe they're a runner and you're saying, okay, got any races coming up? Oh, awesome. Well, these shoes will be great that there's no wear-in time needed and it'll allow you to sort of do this and enjoy the race better. Maybe, someone comes into the outdoor retail store, the outdoor gear store we've got, and it's all about, okay, when's your next climb? What are you doing? Well, do you want to make that climb more fun? When's your next hike? Do you want to not get as wet and buy this certain jacket, or do you want to not get lost and buy this compass? It's those sort of questions to understand where they're going next. Once you've got them engaged from the opt-in, how do you actually then understand where they're going next? And you can position your products in a future-paced way, so they're already picturing what they're going to actually do with that product. So it's much easier to sell.
Yeah, and I remember the first time that you talked to me about future pacing, and it was a bit of a revelation for me. I don't think, as you say, there's a whole series of podcasts about that, but fundamentally, I totally agree that just in the same way as we've talked before about kind of paying attention to how the bigger franchises are doing things, one of the things that they have done is they've either studied the numbers or the science of doing this, and they've got it down to a fine art. But it's about focusing and learning about how to do things. I was actually listening to something you recommended to me recently. It was an info product by Brian Tracy about learning, his accelerated learning course, and he says in there, if you want to do better at something, the first thing you have to do is commit to learn about doing it.
Yep.
And so few people actually think like that. So few people actually go, I wish my conversions were better. I'd better learn about selling. But it's that fundamental. It really is. So sales training for yourself, learning about selling, and the resources that you mentioned, the podcasts. There's lots of information out there now for free or very low investment that people can do to either for themselves learn about selling or to help train their own team. Just because that's the root of conversion, isn't it? In a retail space, it's an active participation in the sales cycle.
Yep, absolutely. So once you've got the conversion stuff nailed and you're increasing that through these sort of systems by 10% on a regular basis, you want to move on to the average item value. Now, obviously, the price that you sell your products and your items for obviously is a very direct and obvious correlation to the profit that a business makes. So you want to obviously be trying to increase your products by 10%. Now, obviously, one way is if you have better trained salespeople that are doing better conversion engagement and better actual just general conversion or opt-in engagement and conversion, you can most likely increase your prices by 10% with no real drop in anything just because of the increased skill level that your team's bringing to the actual conversation and interaction. So, I often suggest, obviously, have that price point a little bit higher than what most of people are. If you're a bit reluctant to do that, then it's all about this sort of actual sales process. During the conversion process, when you're talking to them to buy a product, give them options. Give them the option that, they ask for, and then give them an option at 10% higher. There's always going to be a premium product. There's always going to be something at a higher price point, which is a little bit better that you can sell them. They come in looking for, a harness, and you say, well, here's that option, but here's the better option for you to consider. We went through this recently with the whole baby stuff, with the new little baby boy coming on in a couple of weeks' time, which is so exciting. But, these baby shops, they have you by the short and curlies. Like, you go in there, and we were looking for car seats recently, amongst everything else that you have to buy when a baby comes along, that they use for 6 weeks and then they grow out of, or anything anyway. So with the baby seat, we were like, asking questions, what about this? And she's like, oh, look, that's a wonderful model and it does this, this and this. But if you want the best for your child, I would suggest you go this way. And I've just turned around, I just want to applaud this woman and just go, that is the best sales line I've ever heard. If you want the best for your child. Like, how can you not say, you're like, nah, look, I love him, but not that much. Like, as if you're going to say no to that. It was a brilliant use of marketing, and they just have you, and that's just their standard line. I think that is their tattooed line that every staff member has to use is, if you want the best for your child, because it's just that, no parent, in their right mind, unless it's, got the crazy budget restrictions, is going to go, well, no, I don't want the best for my child. So that's the kind of stuff that you can use as part of the mixing the conversion. It's a sales technique, but it's also using it in a way to actually increase the price of the items people are buying from you. So you're taking that person who wants to buy product A, and you're just taking them that little bit further, that 10% more, to level B. And I think, real estate agents know this, and so many industries who have, I guess, a bit of a harder edge sales approach know that 95% of people, when they come in and mention a budget, it's 10% lower than they're willing to go. That's just human nature, and it's just a fact of trial and case studies and examples that have been used in so many different industries there. People just naturally try and save money, which is fine and completely understandable. And as a consumer, that's your goal, obviously. But as a retailer, what you're trying to do is have them go up that little bit next to that next level, get a better product, get a better experience. And as you should know by selling good quality products, is that next level up is always going to give the person a better result long term, because with higher prices should come better results, better services, better products, longer lasting products. So giving that person taking that into that next step is actually going to give them a better result, which means in the long run they'll remember that experience from using the product over and over again than the actual price they paid for it in 6 months' time, when they want to purchase again or repeat and buy something else.
Good point. So the next one, I think if you were to ask anybody whether they were a retail store owner or just a customer of a retail store, I think most people could give an idea about how you would increase the average items per sale.
Oh, let's see. Upsell? Would you like fries with that?
That's probably the most famous upsell in history of retail.
Yeah. And the one thing, the thing that I learned with Athlete's Foot, which wasn't obvious to me, and I haven't really seen spoken about too much more, is the type of upsell you want to do. Most people, when they sort of talk about upsells, it's like another product. So I'm going to sell you a pair of running shoes, and I'm going to try and sell you a second pair of running shoes. Or I'm going to sell you a pair of running shoes and try and sell you a pair of socks, which is a complementary product. I'm going to sell you a rock climbing harness, but I'm going to try and sell you some carabiners and some rope at the same time, for example. But what we found at Athlete's Foot that converted a lot better than an upsell, because the issue is if you're trying to sell something different, they didn't come into the store to buy socks. They didn't come in the store to buy a climbing rope. They came in the store to buy a harness. They came in the store to buy a backpack, not a tent. So the whole idea is that you want to try and sell something to maintain and get better value from the core product they purchased.
Oh, I like it.
So what they're doing is they're in there to buy a pair of shoes. Now, obviously, if they're going to be spending, $150 on a pair of shoes, you want to make sure they get the most value from that pair of shoes by upselling them a cleaning product, like a shoe cleaner, or a second pair of insoles that they can swap over after every run, which actually helps the longevity of a pair of shoes. Those things are a much easier sell because it's actually helping them preserve the value of their initial sale or initial purchase. It's not something completely different they've got to actually think about. Now, obviously, cross-sales work. We sell them a pair of socks or whatever it might be. That definitely works. But something that does convert a little better is a maintenance-based product. So, if you're selling, and I don't really know the outdoor space that well yet, obviously, but, if you're selling, climbing harnesses, maybe there's a special cleaner that you can do. We recently bought a barbecue for the new house because we've moved and things like that. I now have a backyard. I've been living in beautiful apartments and things like that recently. And now I've got a backyard, which is great. So it means I get a barbecue and I can do the good old Aussie barbecue thing, throw a shrimp on it. But as part of that, we bought the barbecue, and the guy, what he sold me was the maintenance stuff. He didn't sell me necessarily like the wok burner on the side or other bits and pieces like an outdoor setting, like the barbecues galore where we purchase it from have outdoor settings, and they have a whole bunch of other sort of outdoor living stuff that relates to barbecues. What he sold me was the maintenance stuff, the cleaner and the griddle that you put underneath the barbecue in the tray to catch all the dripping fat and stuff like that. And his argument was, well, don't use kitty litter like most people do because it's cheaper, but kitty litter now has paper in it, which is flammable. Buy this stuff because it's going to be less flammable and it's going to preserve your barbecue longer. So what do? I purchased the cross-sell or the upsell. Because it was
the thing that won't set fire to your barbecue.
Exactly, because it's going to maintain my actual barbecue. So that's a big thing when it comes to upsells, is that you're much better off testing and possibly getting much better results by upselling and cross-selling a maintenance-based offer as opposed to a supplementary or similar or complementary product.
I really like that. It's the complementary product is the standard sell. Would you like fries with that? But yeah, there's in so many different kind of trades and types of retail store and types of retail item, the maintenance is available. The maintenance object, the maintenance compatible sale is available. It's random thing off the top of my head. My coffee machine. I have an espresso machine, and they actually give you, because of the kind of the level of the machine, they give you a little sachet of descaler cleaner for it, but they just give you the one. which is a great little hint that you need to go away and buy some more. But that's something that you could easily drop in there. So there's lots of examples of that kind of thing. And yeah, it's like it's actually securing the longevity of the thing you've just invested in. So as a purchaser of these things, it's a much easier thing. As you say, a lot of people go out with a single item in their mind. I want this, and if somebody says, "Do you want this as well?" and it's socks with your running shoes, you're going to go, "Well, no, thanks. I've got socks at home."
Yeah.
It's easy for people to say, "No, I don't want that thing," because they may already have one of those. But when it's a maintenance thing, I love that thing. I know nothing. Clearly, I am clueless about the footwear world, because I had no idea about this idea of alternating the insoles. You being the grand athlete that you are, obviously, it's part of your lifestyle. But yeah, and even the novelty of that in a way, coming to somebody and saying, "Hey, you bought these shoes. Did you know?" So you're educating the client. Yep. Did you know? For an extra few dollars, you can actually extend the life of your surprisingly more expensive shoe quite significantly. Well, that's a no-brainer. Sure, I'll buy that. Yeah, I'll take that. Absolutely. Great. So that's a great tip.
Cool. So let's jump on to the sixth lever. So the sixth lever, the sixth thing you want to be focusing on in your business, and hopefully people by now have sort of seen that, we typically talk about, implementing these 7 levers over a 7-month or, a 7-week process. But, if you're diligent and efficient, you could actually go and put all these things in place in about 2 days. We've spoken about so far. So obviously it takes time to manage and maintain and ensure your team do all this sort of stuff. But to go about putting these processes in place that'll obviously instigate these 10% increases is not actually that hard to do. Obviously, as you do this the seventh time round or the eighth time round, and you really, I think I did the math the other day where it's 8 or 9 times. If you go through the 7 levers and increase every lever by 10% 8 times in a row, you end up going from like a $12 a day profit to $1 million a year profit. It's just insane the growth you can get. So obviously when you get to the nth degree, it's harder to find things that can increase 10%. But for most people, there's at least 5 or 6 different things you can do very, very easily, very quickly for each one of these levers. But when it comes to the 6th lever, this is the transactions per customer per period. Now, obviously, if we're doing this math over an annual period or a monthly period, then obviously it's all about how many times that person buys inside that period. Now, in a retail store, in footwear world, you would generally, unless you're looking at families who buy for their kids, you might look at it on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. You would generally look at this over an annualized area because, people only buy a pair of running shoes maybe twice a year if they're diligent. But in the outdoor world where we sell outdoor, this is one of the appealing things about this space is that we're going to be doing rock climbing. There's harnesses and carabiners and ropes and blah blah blah. Like there's a lot of different stuff people buy on a regular basis. It's not a consumption thing like a supermarket, but like golf and triathlon, there's a lot of different things people continually purchase because there's so many other areas of the sport or the activity that needs or has options to spend money on. So the whole idea here is to get the people to come back more regularly and buy more stuff from us. Pretty obvious. So, I think the easiest thing is to give people the option to get on your VIP membership list. Maybe you can say if you're in a particular sport, like let's say you have a makeup store, this is your retail store. What you can do is you can say, look, we've actually got a 7-part course on how to do your makeup, how to do smoky eyes and how to do good blushes and how to highlight your cheekbones and whatever else it might be. And you can say, well, look, do you want to join our VIP club? And we'll send you those 7 videos via email. It's a great offer. This is how you can use information-based marketing in retail stores. So you're now getting that person's email address in exchange for these 7 video series. Now, obviously, that point means you have their contact details. You can market to them with additional offers and upsells and back-end purchases and things like that. You can remind people if they have something similar in a footwear world to, hey, you bought your running shoes 180 days ago. By now, you've most likely probably getting to the stage where the shoe's starting to wear out. You may not feel it, but it actually is sending shock up your leg and it's causing issues for your knees and your hips. You might want to come back in and have a chat about getting another pair of shoes. And if you do, we'll give you a bonus or a incentive or an offer to come back in. So you've got to figure out some sort of way that you can grab those customers' details so you have a chance to market to them again. You can't just rely on your advertising for them to see again and get reminded. You have to, once you've got that person in your web, quote unquote, have a system in place to capture their details and then communicate with them to get them to come back.
Absolutely. It's one of those silly little things, but people see marketing messages all day, every day. And if they don't see yours, they're going to see someone else's. So getting them to come back, to transact with you is not a passive thing, in my mind. It's something you should take an active part in. So getting them on your VIP list, getting their permission to speak to them again, just to remind them. And again, it's that like with that insole thing, that you're educating them that spare insole will extend the life of their shoe. Well, going back to them after 180 days and say, okay, there's going to be some deterioration, or this might have happened, or that might have happened. Do you want to come in and get a checkup? You're educating the client again in one way or another. So you're building that relationship with them. It's not just a push. It's not, hey, come buy my stuff.
No,
yeah?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's go for the big number 7, the big one, which is margins.
Margins. So this is all about, obviously, it's a very big driver of profit. Obviously, your direct costs, your overheads play a big part in what obviously is left at the end of the day in your back pocket. Now, obviously, negotiating with your suppliers. And this is something that I find very strange is so many people just take the price on the price list for granted. They don't think about volume discounts or anything like that when you actually start hitting certain volumes of revenue that you should be negotiating better prices. And I think most people, if you do just ask the question firmly and use your sales skills that you learnt when you're learning how to convert your sales prospects into this sort of margin play, you can actually start dropping your cost prices based on margin. Now, obviously, the first 6 levers are designed to increase your revenue and your turnover. Now, obviously, the more sales you do, the easier it is to actually decrease your prices, decrease your cost prices. So, funnily enough, if you do the first 6 right, the 7th one, increasing your margins, is relatively easy by just asking a question off the back of your increased revenue.
Okay, that's I think this the asking. I mean, asking for a discount, isn't that a little bit icky? Don't people find that a bit icky?
Well, I don't think so. Not like I think. I think if you're going to going to a supermarket and trying to save $2 on your loaf of bread, that's a bit icky. But when you have a relationship with a wholesaler and all they literally do for you is put items in a box and ship them to you, obviously wholesalers, mate, are one of the best businesses. They're selling the shovels to the miners. They're not actually really having to do a lot. They're making money time and time again because it's like, think about it from their perspective. They're getting repeat business on a monthly basis. Every time you do a new order, you are a repeat client. You are giving them more transactions per period. If you turn the tables in this. So for them, they're not having to actually even market to you. They're not having to come to you and promote to you and say, hey, come back to our store and buy this other thing. You need them to facilitate your clients' wishes and your clients' orders. So the more you do through them, the less their cost is per sale because they're not having to worry about marketing and sales and getting reps out there. You're just obviously ordering regularly based on the volume you're doing. So there's huge economies of scales for them. So why should they get all that love? Why don't you share in that economy of scale as well?
See, now that's a good perspective. That's I guess one of the things that I like about when you get involved in these discussions is that you have sometimes got a perspective that helps people understand, because a lot of people don't see it that way. They go, but they're the supplier. They gave me a price. That's what I need to pay. And yeah, if you understand it, as you say, flip it around. Their cost of sale, every time you go back to them, they're not marketing to you. They're not paying to market to you. They've got you as a client. They're not investing in you as a client, investing in any more marketing or anything like that. And if you are just, as you say, growing your order each time because you've applied these 6 other levers, and you're selling more, you're ordering more from them, then they are literally directly benefiting.
Their stock's turning over quicker in their warehouse, which is much more cost effective and profitable for them. Their staff is packing more items per box, which is more profitable for them. There's so many economies of scale for the supplier that why should they benefit in that?
Yeah, or why should they be the only people to benefit? So there's definitely some wiggle room and some negotiation that you can do. And the reason why I brought it up, and the reason why, because I think so many people have this issue with negotiation, and maybe again, I mean, we've probably come up with like 5 or 6 different episode ideas here, but I do think negotiation is an interesting one. If you'd had any input on that for a future episode,
sure,
cool.
Yeah, look,
so right. Go on.
No,
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely do something about negotiation at one point, or even get some guests on we can talk to who are even much better negotiators than I am, and they can kind of share their examples and stuff like that.
Even better. So, folks, I mean that is an if I was a retail store owner, or in the case of Pete is a retail store owner, and some examples following the 7 levers of business of how you can apply some very, very simple techniques to improve each one of those 7 levers by 10%, and therefore improves your profit 10% at a time, so that cumulatively, if you get a 10% on each one of those over, say, a 7-week period where you try one at a time, 1 week at a time, you'll double the profit in your business. It's not about hitting the 10% or you've failed. A smaller percentage is still an improvement, and it will still go cumulatively through this list. You can still see great returns. You may not see double your profits, but you'll still see a great return just by applying a small amount of effort and letting that cumulative nature kick in. So, Pete, that was great. I really, as always, I learned something. And folks at home, I hope you learned something. We would appreciate your feedback, especially on this new theme that we've brought up, this If I Was theme. We got a lot of great feedback about the 7 levers, as we always do. Everybody that comes across that has always gives us some great feedback. And the 7 levers calculator tool that one of our listeners put together has got a bit of traffic since the last episode. So if you want to give us some feedback, there's lots of different ways that you can reach us. Our favourite is always an iTunes store comment. We do like our iTunes store comments if you're a subscriber through iTunes to the podcast, but you may have come through the podcast through lots of different channels. We've got the preneurmedia.tv site, which is where all the podcasts live. All the episodes are there, plus all the show notes and the transcripts and even little videos to go along with them are there. And you can leave a comment below each episode if you want to reach us there. There's also a kind of a generic feedback mechanism on preneurmedia.tv. You can just leave us a general comment. And we're now published as part of Anthill magazine at Anthill Online. So if you're listening to us on the Anthill site, please leave a comment there and let us and James know what you think about the show. And you can also follow us on Twitter. And you can reach Pete is at Preneur, and I am currently at DGoucher. And we do love your comments, however they get to us. We love your feedback. We take it on board. So thank you if you wouldn't mind.
Awesome, guys. Another good show. And it's coming up to Christmas. Is it Christmas? I've given the cat out of the bag, and I think like long-term listeners know we do record this a couple of weeks in advance to make sure we get this all done. Not quite Christmas yet, is it? When this goes out,
you're just wishing the weeks away, Peter. You're just wishing the weeks away.
I want Santa to come.
Yeah, no, it's not quite Christmas yet. We've a few episodes left, folks. So we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gaucher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at preneurmedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast at preneurgroup.com.